Hey Flo here with another Bible reading. So, first of all, yesterday I noticed that my streams that I do over by my craft table have an echo. They probably all have that, the last three that I've done since I started using my phone as the overhead camera. I didn't realize I was recording audio from my phone as well as my microphone, so it was having this ridiculous baseball announcer echo on there, just super annoying. I wish I would have known, but anyway, so hopefully that will be fixed in future crafting episodes. But yeah, shouldn't be an issue on this scene because I don't have my phone going. So yeah, let's get started with the reading. Pray real quick and then get going. Dear Father, thank you for this day, getting me through another night, and I'm sure you do battle for me when I'm not aware, spiritual battle, and sometimes I'm just not cooperating with what you're doing, and I don't know how frustrated you get with us or if you're just patient through and through, but my self condemnation when I feel less than measuring up to you just, tells me that it's probably not the greatest thing, but at any rate, you don't leave us where we're at, and you work on us. Lord, just, I don't know what came to mind, but the Rhett and Link thing where they decided to deconstruct their faith, Lord, I'm reminded of the parable of the 99 sheep, or the 100 sheep, and the one that goes off, and you reach out and search for them as the good shepherd. Lord, I just pray for all those right now that are choosing through the influences that they've been put under to doubt or walk away. Lord, pray that you would be compassionate toward those and seek them out. Oh, Lord, it's so easy for us to condemn or instantly detach once we see a faltering idea in someone. And I don't believe that demonstrates how you deal with people. So when we see someone who makes a choice that doesn't seem quite right, help us not to reject them, but to love them and seek them like you would. May your word be clear to us and help me to read it well, and help me to be more diligent in prayer. I thank you for Pastor Tim and his teaching on prayer, and that it's starting to sink in and impact me. Pray that many others in your body would rise up and remember the value and power of prayer. Don't let the enemy deceive us to think that it's a waste of time or won't make a difference. You choose to act in response to our prayers. We don't know why, but you do. And so if we aren't praying, less stuff happens. So I just pray that you would convict us to do that. In Jesus' name, amen. Alrighty, let's see. So today we're reading Numbers 11 to 13 and Matthew 20. I think I've got it all set up. Every time I switch over to my craft table, I have to move my microphone over and switch my scenes around, and I sometimes forget to switch things back to how they were for my Bible reading. I wish I could I don't know, I guess I could create a million scenes in OBS so that I don't have to keep changing them around, but I don't know, it's kind of annoying. But the other thing I could do is, I guess I could create a whole new profile just for certain uses, but whatever. Boring technical stuff. All right, let's get going on Numbers chapter 11. Oops. There we go. Soon the people began to complain about their hardship in the hearing of the Lord. And when he heard them, his anger was kindled, and fire from the Lord blazed among them and consumed the outskirts of the camp. And the people cried out to Moses, and he prayed to the Lord, and the fire died down. So that place was called Taberah, because the fire of the Lord had burned among them. Meanwhile, the rabble among them had a strong craving for other food, and again the Israelites wept and said, "Who will feed us meat? We remember the fish we ate freely in Egypt, along with the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. But now our appetite is gone. There is nothing to see but this manna." Now the manna resembled coriander seed, and its appearance was like that of gum resin. The people walked around and gathered it, ground it on a hand mill, or crushed it in a mortar, then boiled it in a cooking pot or shaped it into cakes. It tasted like pastry baked with fine oil. When the dew fell on the camp at night, the manna would fall with it. Then Moses heard the people of family after family weeping at the entrances to their tents, and the anger of the Lord was kindled greatly, and Moses was also displeased. So Moses asked the Lord, "Why have you brought this trouble on your servant? Why have I not found favor in your sight, that you have laid upon me the burden of all these people? Did I conceive all these people? Did I give them birth so that you should tell me, 'Carry them in your bosom as a nurse carries an infant to the land that you swore to give their fathers?' Where can I get meat for all these people? For they keep crying out to me, 'Give us meat to eat.' I cannot carry all these people by myself. It is too burdensome for me. If this is how you are going to treat me, please kill me right now, if I have found favor in your eyes, and let me not see my own wretchedness." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Bring me 70 of the elders of Israel, known to you as leaders and officers of the people. Bring them to the tent of meeting and have them stand there with you. And I will come down and speak with you there. And I will take some of the spirit that is on you and put that spirit on them. They will help you bear the burden of the people so that you do not have to bear it by yourself. And say to the people, 'Consecrate yourselves for tomorrow, and you will eat meat, because you have cried out in the hearing of the Lord, saying, Who will feed us meat? For we were better off in Egypt. Therefore the Lord will give you meat, and you will eat. You will eat it not for 1 or 2 days, nor for 5 or 10 or 20 days, but for a whole month, until it comes out of your nostrils and makes you nauseous, because you have rejected the Lord who is among you, and have cried out before him, saying, Why did we ever leave Egypt?' But Moses replied, 'Here I am among 600,000 men on foot, yet you say, I will give them meat, and they will eat for a month. If all our flocks and herds were slaughtered for them, would they have enough? Or if all the fish in the sea were caught for them, would they have enough?' The Lord answered Moses, 'Is the Lord's arm too short? Now you will see whether or not my word will come to pass.' So Moses went out and relayed to the people the words of the Lord, and he gathered 70 of the elders of the people and had them stand around the tent. Then the Lord came down in the cloud and spoke to him. And he took some of the spirit that was on Moses and placed that spirit on the 70 elders. As the spirit rested on them, they prophesied, but they never did so again. 2 men, however, had remained in the camp, one named Eldad and the other Medad, and the spirit rested on them. They were among those listed, but they had not gone out to the tent, and they prophesied in the camp. A young man ran and reported to Moses, "Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp." Joshua, son of Nun, the attendant to Moses since youth, spoke up and said, "Moses, my lord, stop them." But Moses replied, "Are you jealous on my account? I wish that all the Lord's people were prophets, and that the Lord would place his spirit on them." Then Moses returned to the camp along with the elders of Israel. Now a wind sent by the Lord came up, drove in quail from the sea, and brought them near the camp, about 2 cubits above the surface of the ground, for a day's journey in every direction around the camp. All that day and night, and all the next day, the people stayed up gathering the quail. No one gathered less than 10 homers, and they spread them out all around the camp. But while the meat was still between their teeth, before it was chewed, the anger of the Lord burned against the people, and the Lord struck them with a severe plague. So they called that place Kibroth Hattava, because there they buried the people who craved other food. From Kibroth Hattava, the people moved on to Hazeroth, where they remained for some time. Phew, that's an intense story. Hey, Andreas, sorry, I don't know if you're still here, but I usually don't respond to chat when I'm reading a chapter, and then I catch up after or in between. So several observations came to mind. I'm not sure I'll remember all of them, but sometimes the Bible has parallel histories or different angles on the same events. So, because we already read about how God fed the Israelites with quail, but I think that was more of an overview of the whole story rather than the actual sequence of events like we're hearing now. It was kind of like that when we heard about the tabernacle, like, and the sacrifices. They were listed like in kind of overview detail, and then it went into greater detail. And then as they were doing them for the first time, it felt like we were reading the same thing again, but it was more like, okay, I gave you the law, now here's when you actually do it. And I think it's similar in this, that it's just, okay, now we're actually at the part of the story where the quail thing happens, even though we already read about God providing quail. And then also it's interesting how when we hear about the 70 elders in this part, it's not quite the same story as when, like earlier, I don't remember if it was probably in Exodus, we read that Moses's father-in-law saw that Moses was overworked, and so he suggested that Moses appoint 70 elders or 70 leaders or whatever. And so I don't know if if he said it first, or if God instructed Moses first, or if maybe his father-in-law suggested it and God said, yes, do that. Like, it's hard to know for sure how it panned out exactly, but I'm assuming it's probably referencing the same event, just from two different perspectives. And then, let's see. The crazy thing is, though, like, I don't remember there being so many quail. That's completely insane. So, like, let's see. But there kind of would have to be, because I think there's, like, probably about 2 million people at this point. So it's not like a small amount of quail would be enough to feed all those people. And God was angry at them because they were complaining. So I don't think it's wrong to say that God gets angry. Like, I think in the modern age, we just want to say that God never gets angry. He's just so loving and doesn't care what anybody does. And sometimes it seems like that because, evil people go unpunished. And even when we in our lives sin, there's not always an obvious consequence. I don't know if that's being stored up, or if there is truly a different type of grace going on. I don't claim to understand that, but I think it is important not to misrepresent God as someone who smiles at evil and doesn't care about it anymore because, he's different or something, because he doesn't change. Just noticed my microphone is a little bit too hot there. I have to change it between my craft scene and this one, so it's sometimes a little bit too much gain on it. Anyway, yeah, I don't fully understand a lot of stuff, so I'm not going to claim to. I thought that was kind of funny and crazy how there's so a cubit is 18 inches, or approximately. And it said, what did it say exactly? There's like, not, I mean, if you think God doesn't joke or say things that are just kind of sarcastic or kind of funny, like that's a great one. I don't remember reading that before, but you're going to have so much meat after complaining that it's going to come out your nose. It's like something that we would say, but it's kind of funny. But yeah, so can't find it quickly, but it said like there was so many quail that they were 2 cubits high. That would be like waist deep. Like imagine walking around waist deep in quail as far as the eye can see. That's essentially what it said, I think. What did it say? Like a day's distance in any direction or something? I don't remember exactly. That is an insane amount of quail. Oh, here it is. Now a wind sent by the Lord came up, drove in quail from the sea, and brought them near the camp, about 2 cubits above the surface of the ground, for a day's journey in every direction around the camp. That is crazy. Like, I don't know how many that would be, but definitely many millions of quail. Just supernatural provision, obviously. There's not that many quail around there normally, so I mean, for all we know, God created those quail, just for that occasion. Otherwise, the whole population of quail of the whole earth would be depleted all at once. So definitely some kind of miraculous thing going on there. Especially since they ate all that quail, like not just one day, but yeah, I guess another way to think of it is like it's almost like a plague of quail, like the plagues of Egypt, where they had ridiculous amounts of frogs and flies and gnats and stuff like that. It's like, you want quail? Boom, here you go. It's like a ridiculous, overwhelming amount of quail. They can't even probably have to dig through quail to get back in their tents, and it's just ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard. Like in our modern times where we have modern conveniences and everything provided, and modern society with all the infrastructure and, just especially in America where we're blessed with so much, sadly, it doesn't make us thankful a lot of the time. We still complain. So sometimes when we read these stories about the Israelites, we get frustrated and think, oh, they're so stupid. Why did they complain so much? And then we think of ourselves, and it's like they're way better than we are. Like, it's just human nature to feel that way, like they did and like we do. And so we can't really condemn them when we have so much and yet we still complain. And like, I'm blessed. I'm going through a hard time, but I'm not like starving. I'm not about to die, Granted, it's not my favorite situation to be in, but I really shouldn't complain. God is putting me through a difficult time, at least from my perspective, for some purpose, and I may never know what that purpose is, but I think from my perspective, the best I'm learning about it is that as I'm going through hard times, I'm learning to rely on Him more than before. It's not that I didn't rely on Him already, or I never was the type of person that claimed like, oh, I gained all of this wealth and success for myself by my own 2 hands. I never really had that perspective or problem. I always thanked God that He provided a job and food and money and all that stuff. But for some reason, I guess I need to learn that even more. So I get to experience the lack of ordinary provisions so that God can prove that it comes from Him and that I need to rely on Him and seek Him. And I have no problem with that. If that's the lesson I'm supposed to learn, even better, then fine, bring it on. I guess that's just the way it's going to be, or maybe there's some other deeper lesson that I haven't learned yet. I don't know. Some people might think, oh, God is so cruel. How can you trust in him when he's doing that, or when things in the world fall apart? I don't have an answer for that. I just know that he's given me faith and a relationship with him that I wouldn't trade for anything, no matter how hard it gets. Unfortunately, like I was praying earlier, you hear a lot about people walking away from faith. I think it happens more commonly, if not entirely, in countries that have full provision, great wealth, just abundance of ideas and knowledge. So take that as you will, but I don't think you're going to hear too much of this stuff of walking away from faith in countries where people are poor and fighting for their lives. Those kind of people in those situations are desperate for God, and they're going to run to him more often than run away from him. At least that's kind of been my experience. They always get a mixed bag of, people, it's too hard. Why would God allow this? But I don't know. I tend to see that the more difficult life gets, the more you realize your need for God. So while you might curse the day of when it's difficult, I encourage you to seek God in spite of the difficulties, because he can be found and he does care, and not all the difficulties are his punishments. Sometimes the world is just garbage, and there's also an enemy that likes to be forgotten. The enemy of God likes to blame everything bad on God, and he likes to remain invisible so that none of the blame can be thrown on him. But there is an enemy of God out there doing a lot of this evil stuff. So try to remember that if you can. Sometimes it's hard, but alrighty, let's go on to Numbers chapter 12. Didn't really intend to preach a sermon there, just sharing some thoughts on stuff as I go through it. Okay, Numbers 12. Then Miriam and Aaron criticized Moses because of the Cushite woman he had married, for he had taken a Cushite wife. Does the Lord speak only through Moses, they said? Does he not also speak through us? And the Lord heard this. Now Moses was a very humble man, more so than any man on the face of the earth. And suddenly the Lord said to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, You three, come out to the tent of meeting. So the three went out. And the Lord came down in a pillar of cloud, stood at the entrance to the tent, and summoned Aaron and Miriam. When both of them had stepped forward, he said, Hear now my words. If there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will reveal myself to him in a vision. I will speak to him in a dream. But this is not so with my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house. I speak with him face to face, clearly, and not in riddles. He sees the form of the Lord. Why then were you unafraid to speak against my servant Moses? So the anger of the Lord burned against them, and he departed. As the cloud lifted from above the tent, suddenly Miriam became leprous, white as snow. Aaron turned towards her, saw that she was leprous, and said to Moses, My Lord, please do not hold against us this sin we have so foolishly committed. Please do not let her be like a stillborn infant whose flesh is half consumed when he comes out of his mother's womb. So Moses cried out to the Lord, O God, please heal her. But the Lord answered Moses, If her father had but spit in her face, would she not have been in disgrace for 7 days? Let her be confined outside the camp for 7 days. After that she may be brought back in. So Miriam was confined outside the camp for 7 days, and the people did not move on until she was brought in again. After that the people set out from Hazeroth and camped in the wilderness of Paran. Man, I envy Moses. Just, I don't remember if there's any, I don't think I have anything against Moses, and I don't know, mean, he's not perfect. He's not a God himself, but God doesn't lie. And he literally said that Moses is the most humble person on the face of the planet. Imagine that. Man, can't be too bad to try to be like Moses. But yeah, humility is one of those things that I highly seek after. I have a super great example of my grandpa, who was an absolutely amazing man of God. I wish he was still alive, because he died before I reached the full knowledge of how blessed I was to have him as my grandfather. And so while I did learn a lot from him from a distance, I didn't really seek to spend time with him for the purpose of like just soaking up knowledge and character and all the stuff that I saw in him. Like, I'm sure some of it just naturally poured out into my life and hopefully got adapted into my own way of living, but I am a very small, weak shadow of what he is. I could never try to be as great as he was, and yet he is the most humble person I've ever met in my entire life. No one has even come close. Like, I meet great people with great knowledge, great wisdom, great ability to teach, all sorts of gifts, but none of them come across nearly as humble as I saw my grandpa. Not to say that they're arrogant or something, but like just the humility that he had was next level. Like, oh my goodness. He wouldn't even like me saying this stuff, but he's gone now, so I can I can say all sorts of good things about him. But yeah, I miss him greatly. Like, when he died, I feel like something really went amiss in my life, and even just his prayers. I imagine he prayed for me and all of his grandchildren, because he's just a great man of God. And I imagine my life took a little bit of a dive when I lacked his prayers in my life, and just his good godly example. I could talk about him for hours, but anyway, Moses, when it says he's the most humble man on earth, it just reminds me of my grandpa, because I don't know if he was the most humble man on earth when he was alive, but God probably took note of him. Like, he probably had him on a list of competitors for the most humble. Anyway, let's go on to... I can't wait to see him someday too. Like, I'm anxious to see Jesus, of course, in heaven, but man, I want to see my grandpa too, and all the other friends and family that came before me. My great grandma as well. She was a huge influence on my life. But anyway, let's keep going. I could reminisce for hours. Numbers chapter 13. Oh, what was something else I liked? Oh, man, I want to find that. I don't know if I can find that verse quickly, but we just read something like, what was it? I can't remember exactly how it worked, but it was like part of the spirit that was put on Moses, the blessing that made him great, was shared with those 70 elders. And just in that immediate moment, they prophesied, because there's so much power and blessing that Moses was given. And what did he say? Like, I don't remember why it came up in the chapter, but he said something like, "What are you talking about? I wish this blessing was shared with every single person in Israel." That's amazing. And that's what we should all wish, like, not to have some special notoriety that comes with being close to God. Like, oh, I can be like Billy Graham, where everybody practically bows down and worships me because I'm so great. Not to say that Billy Graham was like that. I think he was also a very humble man. But we shouldn't really wish for notoriety or a great name. Really, what we should hope and pray for is that everybody can share the same blessing or connection with God that we have. And we shouldn't wish to keep it for ourselves. I think that's a common problem these days where Christians kind of shrink away from the world because it's too hard for them to handle, and they just kind of enjoy their happy spiritual life separated from the world, and they fail to share their faith and love of Christ with the world. I think that's kind of been a pandemic the last generation or so, where there's not much sharing of faith going on, and people are afraid to share what they believe. And I myself have been guilty of that because I'm not very good at talking and sharing things. A super introvert, stumble over my words. But I think this streaming thing has helped me quite a bit because I don't normally talk that much. And I'm thankful for that, at least. It's a little bit easier to do on a live stream when nobody's watching than in person, face to face. I'm pretty shy when it comes to talking about this stuff, but anyway, just a little challenge for anybody that's a Christian and feels like it's hard to share or talk about what you believe with people. I'd encourage you to try anyway. Just pray that God would give you the ability to speak clearly and to reveal his heart for people, because he really does care. He loves people. People think that either he doesn't exist or that he doesn't care, but that's so far from the truth. It's the deception of this age, of this generation. All right, let's go on to Numbers chapter 13. And the Lord said to Moses, "Send out for yourself men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites. From each of their fathers' tribes send one man who is a leader among them." So at the consent of the Lord, Moses sent them out from the wilderness of Paran. All the men were leaders of the Israelites. And these were their names. From the tribe of Reuben, Shemua son of Zachar. From the tribe of Simeon, Shaphat son of Hori. From the tribe of Judah, Caleb son of Jephunneh. From the tribe of Issachar, Igal son of Joseph. From the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea son of Nun. From the tribe of Benjamin, Palti son of Raphu. From the tribe of Zebulun, Gadiel son of Sodi. From the tribe of Manasseh, a tribe of Joseph, Gadi son of Suzi. From the tribe of Dan, Amiel son of Gamali. From the tribe of Asher, Sethur son of Michael. From the tribe of Naphtali, Nabi son of Vopshi. And from the tribe of Gad, Guel son of Maki. These were the names of the men Moses sent to spy out the land, and Moses gave to Hoshea son of Nun the name Joshua. When Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, he told them, "Go up through the Negev and into the hill country. See what the land is like, and whether its people are strong or weak, few or many. Is the land where they live good or bad? Are the cities where they dwell open camps or fortifications? Is the soil fertile or unproductive? Are there trees in it or not? Be courageous and bring back some of the fruit of the land." It was the season for the first ripe grapes. So they went up and spied out the land from the wilderness of Zin as far as Rehob toward Lebo Hamath. They went up through the Negev and came to Hebron, where Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai, the descendants of Anak, dwelled. It had been built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. When they came to the valley of Eshcol, they cut down a branch with a single cluster of grapes, which they carried on a pole between two men. They also took some pomegranates and figs. Because of the cluster of grapes the Israelites cut there, that place was called the Valley of Eshcol. After 40 days, the men returned from spying out the land, and they went back to Moses, Aaron, and the whole congregation of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They brought back a report for the whole congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. And they gave this account to Moses. We went into the land to which you sent us, and indeed it is flowing with milk and honey. Here is some of its fruit. Nevertheless, the people living in the land are strong, and the cities are large and fortified. We even saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites live in the land of the Negev. The Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live by the sea and along the Jordan. Then Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, We must go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly conquer it. But the men who had gone up with him replied, We cannot go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are. So they gave the Israelites a bad report about the land that they had spied out. The land we explored devours its inhabitants, and all the people we saw there are great in stature. We even saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak that come from the Nephilim. We seem like grasshoppers in our own sight, and we must have seemed the same to them. All right. Thanks, Zebra Soul Girl, for the invite. Hope you're doing good. So yeah, I haven't read this for so long, man. I don't even know if I could figure out how many years it's been since I read through the whole Bible, but it's been a long time. I'm kind of enjoying reading through it again because none of it's like totally new, but it's like I forgot a lot of these little details and stuff. I remember hearing this stuff in Sunday school about all these stories, but it's cool to read it again. So yeah, it'll be cool to see how this turns out. I mean, I know how it generally turns out, but all the little details. I know that God gets kind of angry that, they bring back a bad report that shows their lack of faith, and only Caleb is commended for his confidence. And I believe that when they go into the promised land, only Caleb and Joshua are left alive of all these people, if I remember right, besides the children. Anyway, we'll read about that later. So there we go. Let's see. Oh, we still have Matthew chapter 20. I was thinking we were done, but not quite. Matthew chapter 20. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. He agreed to pay them a denarius for the day and sent them into his vineyard. About the third hour he went out and saw others standing in the marketplace, doing nothing. You also go into my vineyard, he said, and I will pay you whatever is right. So they went. He went out again about the 6th hour and the 9th hour and did the same thing. About the 11th hour he went out and found still others standing around. Why have you been standing here all day long doing nothing? He asked. Because no one has hired us, they answered. So he told them, You also go into my vineyard. When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, Call the workers and pay them their wages, starting with the last ones hired and moving on to the first. The workers who were hired about the 11th hour came and each received a denarius. So when the original workers came, they assumed they would receive more, but each of them also received a denarius. On receiving their pay, they began to grumble against the landowner. These men who were hired last worked only 1 hour, they said, and you have made them equal to us who have borne the burden and the scorching heat of the day. But he answered one of them, Friend, I am not being unfair to you. Did you not agree with me on 1 denarius? Take your pay and go. I want to give to this last man the same as I gave you. Do I not have the right to do as I please with what is mine? Or are you envious because I am generous? So the last will be first, and the first will be last. As Jesus was going up to Jerusalem, he took the 12 disciples aside and said, "Look, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be delivered over to the chief priests and scribes. They will condemn him to death, and will deliver him over to the Gentiles to be mocked and flogged and crucified, and on the third day he will be raised to life." Then the mother of Zebedee's sons came to Jesus with her sons and knelt down to make a request of him. "What do you want?" he inquired. She answered, "Declare that in your kingdom one of these two sons of mine may sit at your right hand and the other at your left." "You do not know what you are asking," Jesus replied. "Can you drink the cup I am going to drink?" "We can," the brothers answered. "You will indeed drink my cup," Jesus said, "but to sit at my right or left is not mine to grant. These seats belong to those for whom my Father has prepared them." When the 10 heard about this, they were indignant with the two brothers. But Jesus called them aside and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their superiors exercise authority over them. It shall not be this way among you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." As they were leaving Jericho, a large crowd followed him, and there were 2 blind men sitting beside the road. When they heard that Jesus was passing by, they cried out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us." The crowd admonished them to be silent, but they cried out all the louder, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us." Jesus stopped and called them. "What do you want me to do for you?" he asked. "Lord," they answered, "let our eyes be opened." Moved with compassion, Jesus touched their eyes, and at once they received their sight and followed him. That's interesting. So I don't know if that's the same story as the one we read before, but it seems like my memory's so bad. But I think the one we just read yesterday or whenever that was the story of Bartimaeus. But in this story, there's 2 blind men, so it could be the same story and just not told quite the same way, or it might be different. Jesus healed so many people, it's hard to know whether they're the same story or not, but anyway. Let's see. Oh, and the story of, I don't know what the title of that parable is, but the one where the workers get hired at different times and get the same pay for different hours of work. It talks about that being a comparison to the kingdom of heaven. Thanks, Leo, for the lemon, by the way. So, like, that's going to be how it is, like, when we all get to heaven, and there's people that wasted their whole lives doing terrible things, not seeking God, and then at the very end, just before they die, they see the truth and confess Jesus as Lord, repent from their sins, and he forgives them, and they get the same reward as someone who's spent all their life following God, trying to keep away from the world, the sins of the world, and doing everything correctly. And the temptation would be to say something like, "Lord, why did this person who was terrible most of their life get the same reward as I did?" That's kind of the comparison it's making. So it's sharing with us that, well, first of all, it's not because of our works that we get to heaven. It's because of God's grace, his generosity. And then there's also the other parable that we read about earlier, where the person who sins more and is forgiven more loves more, and the person that doesn't need much forgiveness often doesn't love as much. So I don't know, I don't envy having a wasted life and at the end finally coming to Jesus. I've known Jesus most of my life, so I'm kind of like the second person in the story, but I don't want to waste my life, but what I do want is to love Jesus a lot. So it almost makes me envious of people who've had really rough lives, and then they come to Jesus with great passion because they're amazed at how much he can forgive. Not that I lack things that I need forgiveness for. I feel like a wretch most of the time, but at the same time, I do feel envious for people that have this crazy huge redemption story of how they were, just had this terrible life and then they turned to the Lord. And it seems like God uses people like that often in more dramatic, spectacular ways. But I'm just thankful that God has people like that. I don't feel like I'm one of those. I'm more of just a ho-hum, average, random dude. Doesn't have any special abilities. Probably not going to change the world or anything, but still going to try to share what I believe is the truth. So keep reading through the Bible. Hopefully we'll make it through. Not sure if I'll make it through the year myself, but I'll just keep doing it as long as I can. And anybody that is enjoying it, hope you're blessed, and I'll keep praying for you. I did start sort of informally a thing that I want to try to build up on, and that's to pray more often. I watched a really good sermon message about praying every day and making a habit of it, and I've never really done that. I just pray like throughout the day here and there as things come to mind, but I don't have like a scheduled time to do it. And I've always known that I've heard that a million times, you should do that, but I just have never really been one to do that. So I'm going to try to get better at that. And so that's my little vlog section. Keep me accountable. Just so, I'm not trying to boast about something I'm doing, but I like to share the things that I'm doing so that if I repeat it and say it and talk about it, it's going to be more likely to stick in my own brain, and I'll hopefully actually do it. But that's kind of what streaming is like for me too. It helps me stick with the things that I want to do. So anyway, that's all for today. Went a little longer than normal because I was blahing. But anyway, I don't know if I'll do another Bible reading today or not, but I'll probably do another book binding stream because I want to finish or continue where I left off with those magnet books. Plus, I also have to open the iron that I bought that I described that I was going to do last stream, and I didn't do it. It's not very exciting, but my description was inaccurate from the previous one. So anyway, boring stuff, but hopefully someone is blessed by this. I don't know how, but God can do things that I can't do. So anyway, thanks everybody that was lurking and stopped by. Appreciate y'all, and I will see you next time.